Welcome to the Firebelly Social Show. We're focused on talking to food and beverage brands that are on a mission to make the world better.
Hey, everyone. Duncan here with another episode of the Firebelly Social Show, where I get to chat with founders and leaders of mission-driven food and beverage brands. It's one of the favorite things I get to do, and I love it. I love the conversations. I love the drive. I love the passion that these founders bring to the table. Before we jump in, we want to shine a light on today's conversation. We're going to do a deep dive into building real connection, sharing authentic stories, and creating platforms that bring people together with my man, Sean Klimson. He's the owner of KLS and the force behind Together Talks. And of course, a huge shout out to our sponsor, Firebelly Marketing. Firebelly partners with mission-driven brands to tell stories, to create familiarity and awareness, and to help with social based sales velocity. So if you're ready to turn your social media into a powerful engine, go to firebellymarketing.com to learn more. So today we're here with Sean Klimson, owner of KLS and the creator of Together Talks, a platform centered around one simple but powerful idea that everyone has a story and it's worth sharing. And Sean has really built something that goes way beyond content. He's created a space where people can show up, they can be themselves, and connect through their experiences that are shared in a world where so much feels just kind of like fake and filtered and curated. Together Talks is really something that's about keeping it real, vulnerability, and bringing people together through conversation. So, Sean, I'm so happy to meet you. Welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you for having me. I know we joked before we jumped on that we've been kind of circling each other for a long time, so I'm glad we were finally able to do it. Good things come to those who wait, so happy to be here.
Absolutely. I mean, and you have done something amazing, just amazing. And, Together Talks is talked about for so many reasons. Number one, it's just fun to read and learn the background behind the people that you interview, but also it actually ends up being one of the best SEO plays because when you look for some of these founders, KLS is in the top few search results. So what sparked the idea behind doing this, my man?
Yeah, I wish I could take credit, but it was actually a friend of mine. So back at the end of 2022, a friend of mine was helping with some SEO work, which you had just mentioned. And I can tell this story to a lot of the founders we speak with, but she was reading a magazine on her own time. And within the magazine, there was like a small little blurb. So it highlighted founder of a company and then 2 or 3 sentences on what the company did. And they were getting highlighted because they were donating part of their proceeds to either fighting sex trafficking or human trafficking. So she sends me this picture, it's like a Tuesday, Wednesday night at like 9, 10 p.m. She's like, hey, what if you do something like this? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like to write in school. I was always a big kind of behind the scenes person, which is why I like to write. I didn't like to have conversations. So my thought was, all right, maybe I can turn this into a sales channel. I despise making sales calls, which is like the heartbeat of what I do for a living. But it was a different approach for me. So we just kicked it off early 2023, and I started cold emailing on LinkedIn with no background, no support, no data. I just literally said, hey, this is a new thing I'm starting. If you'd like to be featured, we'd love to have you. And the very first company we did was an over 100-year-old company. And then the third company we did, funny story, before I jumped on, he just called me. I haven't spoken to him in almost 3 years, and he had a palette to move. He's like, hey, I know we talked. This is what you do. Can you help me? So it's just one of those funny things where a lot of times it comes full circle like that. But after about the 4th or 5th feature, I was talking to companies that had nothing to do with freight, which is what our core business is. But I was just interacting with these super interesting people who had incredible stories. So I forced myself to kind of step back and say, okay, let's change our approach on this, because if we just have it as a sales focus, I feel like we're really missing out on what the whole kind of vibe and mission can be. And so from there on, I just said, we're going to just focus on the company, their story, how we can help them in that moment. And maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't, but that was kind of our authenticity play, was just, we wanted to give back and help others. And, we've heard a lot of times people say, how do you do this? Because it does take a lot of time, right? Each conversation is almost an hour, and then we got to edit it, and then we publish it, all these different steps. But I tell everyone, I'm grateful for it because it allows me to step away from my core business for about, 30, 45 minutes a day, which is a nice kind of break. But then also it's free therapy. Like you'd mentioned, it can be a very lonely space when you're a founder. If you don't have other founder friends, it's a different language. I always tell people, right? If you haven't stepped in that arena, you don't understand the pressure that comes with it. And, worrying about if you're going to have enough money to pay bills next month. And then so many of these founders are creating such incredible products that, so much is riding on them, all their fan bases, their customers. So the amount of stress they feel is nothing, what I feel is nothing compared to them. But just to get to sit and talk with them and, be able to relate to them, because at the end of the day, founders are still founders and we have a lot of the same, issues. But yeah, it's been something that's really special. Our 235th feature just went out this morning, or this afternoon, a couple of minutes before I hopped on with you. So we're very grateful for it. Our goal is to hit 300 this year. So we're hoping we can do that and then just continue it and, maybe one day follow in your guys' footsteps and turn it into a podcast.
I mean, I just love this is such a beautiful origin story, and thank you for keeping it real. And there's a real power to storytelling, and especially I guess in today's day and age of there's so much drama in the world. I wanted to ask you, why do you feel sharing personal stories is so important?
Well, for one, a lot of times when we talk with founders, because we always try to follow the same formula. So kind of how it started, lessons learned, successes, and then end with piece of advice. And then within there, we might segue off. But we often kind of hear from companies about how they build a brand and how important it is to show kind of that behind the curtains look, right? People want to know who they're buying from, what they're creating, why they're doing it. One of our features was, he was kind of like the white whale I was after for a while is Midday Squares out of Canada. It's, two siblings and then a brother-in-law, but it's a family business. But they start to finish film everything they do, how they do it, why they do it. And they were kind of the first that I've been aware of who took that approach. And it just was kind of eye-opening that people really care about who they're buying from, right? It's so crowded when you go to a shelf and have to buy from hundreds of different items just in one product category. So knowing who you're behind and who you're supporting, if they are authentic, I think that goes a long way. And that's how people maintain retention. That's one of the ways we've done it is we haven't changed. We are who we are. We do what we say we're going to do. And so giving people a platform to express why they do what they do, I think is important. The other caveat is like most things in this world, it costs money to get your story out there, right? We have not charged a single penny for any of this. We never will. It's not part of it. We want it to be an opportunity where someone who maybe isn't as far along as you is going to read this conversation and they can take something from it, or maybe they really admire what you're doing in the space. So we believe that it just possesses immense power to give back and help. And maybe they can share something that they needed when they started and it wasn't available or they didn't know where to look or how to find it. And now maybe that's out there for somebody else. So it's more so just about giving back. And I think it goes a long way. We end up getting rewarded on the back end somehow.
I mean, and I think you have done just from reading some of the interviews, like you've done such a great job with creating a safe space for these conversations. How do you get people to feel so comfortable to open up like that?
That's a really good question. I remember one of them I was on and she accused me of being Oprah because she just started crying. But a lot of times I think it's following the flow of the conversation. I've always considered myself a good listener because I prefer to listen more than I talk. So I really kind of hear and understand what they're saying, and then I know how to kind of segue that into whether it's a good follow-up or whatever the case is. But again, it just gives somebody an opportunity to kind of let their guard down and get things off their chest or off their brain, because especially these founders, they wear so many hats. They're responsible for so many things that, one of the things we talk about a lot is how they manage, being proud of themselves and celebrating their victories, because you're always just on to the next thing, right? Keep moving that goal line, you keep having to progress and grow the company. So when you have somebody sit down who generally takes, even if it's a half hour to listen and support you and commend you and applaud you, I think it goes a long way. And then it forces them to sit there and reflect on the decisions they made, the good ones, the bad ones, what they've learned. And that's why I like kind of doing that start to finish approach, because it forces them to appreciate just how far they've come, And one of the favorite things I hear is when we talk with founders, it often comes up. They say, if my business ended tomorrow, I wouldn't have regrets. I'd be so grateful for what I've learned. I think that's the biggest thing is, there's so many people out there who maybe only have one foot in and they're like, it's too risky, I can't do it. And then everyone says, just start, just do it, just do it. And I can attest to that. It was very scary. It was, is this going to work? Am I going to have customers follow me? But then once you do it and you see on the other side, I always tell people I went from bad stress to good stress, right? I have more stress than I ever had, but it's stress for the right reasons. It's allowing me to create a better life for myself, my family. And that's what a lot of these founders find. So yeah, just giving them I guess the inclusivity is what I would say. And then also, this wasn't my idea, but early on, I was asked by, she was a financial advisor. I got referred to her and it kind of just spider webs out a lot of times. And she forced me to, or not forced me, but asked me to be interviewed, so flip the role. So I was the one answering the questions, which was so odd for me, but that ended up being our 100th feature. I was able to work with six of our previous features. They all interviewed me for a short portion, and that turned into our article. So, and that was as vulnerable as it gets. My father had passed away, shortly before that. That came up in the article. And so if anyone wants to understand what this is about, they can go read that, see how vulnerable I was, and then you understand why, like you said, a lot of these founders are vulnerable because it's just an opportunity where we're inclusive and we support each other.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful way to the beautiful way to put it. And I think your approach lends itself, to making people feel safe and to be able to talk. Do you think everyone has a story and what makes one story resonate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked with, like I said, companies that have been over 100 years old, which, and then we talked with huge companies where they're in multiple countries and just bigger than I can ever fathom, right? I'm a two-person operation. It's myself and my sister, so it's completely different from what we do. And then we've talked with companies that literally started that month, right? They're just brand new and they're like, hey, we just need to get our name out there. You're taking a chance on us. Of course we'll do it because we have nothing but time at this point. So everyone's story can be applied some way. And that's what I say. Like, even though I'm in the service industry and generally they're in the product industry, there's still things I can take, right? How do you manage your time or how do you go about getting your name out there? What are your marketing techniques? That's why we recently, over the last, I think it's 7 months now, on the Friday after our features, we do a segment called Community Call Out, which you've actually been a part of a couple times.
Yes.
But it's an opportunity where those who we interview who's been impactful or influential in your life or your career, we give them a chance to shout out those people so that again, it's just how can we help? How can we give back? How can we spread the word of, these people have helped me, whether it's my SEO or my social media, co-packer, warehouse, 3PL, whatever the case may be. A lot of times we're also, in the weeds trying to survive and grow our business that we don't have time to maybe do the sales and marketing that we want to do. So here's an opportunity where someone respected in the space is going to go out and vouch for somebody else. And then that's how, again, it's just another way we feel we can give back and help others.
I know. I think that's tremendous. What have you what kind of a response do you get from the audience and people who are reading the stories?
So a lot of times we've gotten, feedback from friends or family. I've gotten weird. So Freebird's one, they're going crazy right now. They're having huge success, Jay Williams. And I got a call from his son's friend, read the article, and he worked in logistics in a different capacity, but he called me just to say, hey, I read this about, my friend's dad's company. I know them. I've known them for a long time. Can we connect? Is there a chance we could work together? We never would have crossed paths without it, but it's just, you never know who's going to know who and how it can work. Like I said, the gentleman who just called for me to move a couple pallets, we talked literally January of 2023, and now he's calling me 3 years and 3 months later because we reached out and we gave him time to feature his company. So the audience is vast and wide. Obviously, we want to continue to grow it. LinkedIn's our biggest platform. We're not as active on the other ones, but you never know who's going to read it. And hey, maybe they try a new product and then they become a lifelong fan. A lot of these companies do promo codes. So it's a way for them to get additional sales, with again, them not doing anything but taking a half hour out of their time and commenting on a post that they're tagged in.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't believe how small the world can be sometimes to people to be connected like that. And I think a lot of platforms are chasing content. A lot of people are chasing content, right? But I think to me, one of the things that makes you different is you're building connection. I think How do you think about that kind of a difference?
Yeah, so we just had a call this morning for a prospect who, was interested in a transportation partner, and it started the same way. I had reached out. I'll be honest, I probably cold email more than anyone in the history of LinkedIn, right? That's how we source all of our together talks, but it's honest. There's proof of concept. You can go and look, right? It's completely free of charge, and some people it works for, some people it don't. That's entirely okay. But I don't think I've had anyone in the 235 that we've done come back and say, oh, this wasn't worthwhile or is a waste of my time, right? It's obviously the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out. We've had some, kind of duds where it was just we are pulling, teeth to kind of get information out about their company, which always made me scratch my head. But 95% of the time, we're sitting down having a genuine conversation like it's my best friend, right? It's someone I've never met. We're sitting like this in front of a camera and it's just tell me your story. Tell me what is important. Why are you doing this? And when you get a founder, that's an easy thing to pull out, right? Nobody's creating a company and saying, oh, well, I don't care if it works out. It's I'm creating this out of a need or out of a necessity for my life. This is my life's work. It depends on it. So it's easy to kind of get those answers as long as you can kind of guide them in that way. But yeah, it's really just about getting introduced to people. And I've learned about so many new products or spaces that maybe I never would have looked, because it's outside of kind of my world. But now oh, hey, here's this awesome product. Let's give it a try. And then it's about, like you said, connections is I never considered myself kind of that person who knows a lot of people, right? I've always had a small circle, really refined. But in this position, it's allowed me to someone down the road I talk to, and it's like, hey, I'm having issues with this. I go, wait a second, I know who that person is. The guy I talked to today, he went through our together talks and he's like, oh, I already work with three or four of those people. So again, it goes back to that small world, but it's being able to be that connector. And then I always say the best, way to describe somebody in terms of like their business reputation is will they mention your name when you're not in the room? And that's how I value that you bring integrity, you bring purpose, you bring something substantial to the table is I go and do these interviews and then we might not talk to somebody for 6 months. And then again, they come back and say, hey, so I talked to so-and-so, they need services. I referred you. We've never done a thing for them outside of this article, but it's, you care about who you work with when you get to a certain point, right? You're not just going to pick some Joe Schmo off of Google. You really want to value who you work with. And that's what's important to me. We're in a position where we don't have to take on every new account. We get to pick and choose who we work with. And so when somebody refers us to another company, that really matters because that means we made a difference and an impact on them. You know what I mean? And now they're willing to put their name on the line to refer us. And so that goes a long way for us.
I think there's a key piece there that you have said and alluded to. Maybe someone missed it. Is that you're giving. You are giving. You are not asking for anything in return. And people pay a lot for search results. People pay SEO companies a lot of money, and you can spend a lot of money getting leads, and generating leads. But you're not focused on the lead. You're not focused on creating a certain type of SEO for someone. You are just here to listen to their story, and you want to talk to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we just want to share, right? We want to provide a different audience for them because there's certain publications you can go out there and they do this great write up on you, you know what I mean? But you have to pay for it, right? Or you have to get your business partners to pay for advertising. So we've done that for one of our partners. You got to buy the little thing in the magazine to offset the cost. Like those are all great, but not every company has 5, 10, $15,000 lying around to go and have a publication. Now, do we have the same audience reach? No. But with how it is in today's day and age on LinkedIn, if you care about the post, you share it, you comment on it, and then you get your friends and acquaintances within the industry comment. All of a sudden, it goes a little bit viral. Now you get a bunch of clicks, right? We had before we had to change our website, so we lost a lot of our posts, but we had a couple of our posts over 1,000 views, right? So I mean that's crazy for us. Like we shared it once, and then it goes up there. Probably our number one was our seventh feature. She's a food broker in the space doing really well, Jade Street Consulting, Melissa, but they're one of our top features. And I think this came up on the talks when you looked at it, we were like the third link for them, right? She's
Yeah.
winning awards like every couple months. Their company's growing. They work with huge companies. Like they're just rock stars in the space. but our little feature from 2023 is one of their most popular links. You know what I mean? And that's not something we set out to do. It just happened organically because of how successful they are. And then people probably wanted to learn about her and her company. And if there's a way, if you're interested in working with a company, just read our review if we've had or our feature with them, because we literally go start to finish and we're usually with the founder or CMO or, a higher up. Like you get nuts to bolts about that company in a way where they're not doing it in a salesy way, right? They're telling their most vulnerable stuff. So if you like who that person is in the feature, you're probably going to want to work with them.
Beautiful. So let's talk about KLS. For everyone listening, what does KLS do, and how do you describe it, and who do you serve?
Absolutely. So this is usually one of the questions that comes up in our interviews because people are like, wait, so this isn't your full-time business. That's not. So our core business, what keeps our lights on, is logistics. So we work in the trucking space, anything on a truck over the road, nationwide coverage, LTL and truckload. So if you're shipping one pallet or entire truck is what we focus on. And then one of our niche industries has turned into the CPG food and beverage space. We kind of accidentally fell into it about 3.5 years ago, just before starting this campaign. And then it's just grown ever since. And selfishly, I say any chance I get to interview a founder for our Together Talks in the CPG space, I love it because and you can attest to this, you're in the space, but it is one of the most inclusive industries I've ever seen. And we touch so many industries working in logistics, but 98% of the people within it are just generally good people who want to give back, who want to help. So their kind of ethos represents what we want Together Talks to be. So that's one of our big focuses. We've had a really good footprint in there. And then although Together Talks isn't designed as, a sales operation, oftentimes companies work with us on the Together Talks and then understand who we are, what we're about. So if they have a need for logistics, they say, oh, I'm going to keep you in mind, or, oh, let's talk, because you want to work with someone you appreciate, who you like, right? And so again, I think that goes back to my mindset change early on in this is it's not what can we get from them, is what can we give them? And then if we put our best foot forward, show who we are, be authentic, the right people are going to come back. And we've had that. I mean, we've had accounts come from this. Not to give them too much attention because they don't need it anymore. They're doing great. But I would say Genius Gourmet is probably our biggest claim to fame out of our Together Talks. They were feature 16. And I think it was about 6 months we didn't get a single opportunity from them. And then they were having trouble with their refrigerated freight. So they came to us, saw how we operated, and now we handle, I think, almost all of their freight, if not all of it. They're in Costco, HEB, Sam's, Target, Aldi. They come out with, it seems, a new product every month. They just had a new debut at Expo West. Like they're crushing it, and we've just been able to grow alongside them. So we went from just their refrigerated freight, excuse me, to just their LTL to now their truckload, staffing their ingredients, distribution, like everything. But it's just one of those stories where someone took a chance on us to promote them and their company, saw what we were about when the opportunity was right for them, gave us an opportunity. And now we've been partners for, going on 3 years. They continue to grow. We grow alongside them. So we're just grateful for, going back to that word you mentioned, connections, right? We made a connection and then we fostered it, we nurtured it, and then we continue to let it grow and blossom together.
And let me ask you this, if you had to say who KLS is best for, or who is best for KLS, what kinds of brands or people are the right fit for what KLS is building?
So definitely anyone in the food and bev space. If once you get to scale, so you start getting indoors with the big distributors or retailers, that's when we're in especially good fit because they have certain protocols and hoops you have to jump through, and we've navigated that space. We're kind of experts in it, so I'd say definitely those. But personally, for me, I love working with emerging brands because they're so focused on so many different things. So if they can come and bring someone in of our size and our expertise, they're getting a really, really good service. And we don't work for crazy margins, right? We care about them. And our hope is we're going to help support them so that as they scale, we scale together. And we have that perfect proof of concept with Genius Gourmet, right? We started small and now they're nationwide everywhere. So anytime there's an emerging company, that's why I love featuring them in Together Talks, because there's so much they don't know, and that's okay. You can go and kind of it's like bringing on a executive board, right? they're a specialty in this department, rely on them. That's kind of what we like to be is we don't want to be transactional. We want to be partners. So companies that are looking to kind of get to that level of distribution with freight, I would say we'd be a great fit for.
And let's talk a little bit about Sean, the man. What do you like to do for fun?
That is a great question. I've gotten into golf. So after my dad passed, I picked that up. I'd played like two or three rounds before his passing in May of 2023. I despised the game because I could usually pick up any sport and be relatively good at it. This one I could not. I played baseball my whole life, so my tendencies just didn't work for it. And then once he passed, I kind of just needed something to, go and clear my head. So that was kind of my avenue. And I struggled at it for a year, and now I've gotten to the point where I've gotten good enough, right? But I love it because you're never going to perfect it. It's something you always have to work at. So I would say that's my thing. And then trying to get into traveling, I've been very bad at that because I run a company. I don't take vacation. I don't take days off. I don't get sick. I'm here every day except the 9 holidays we get off, for the year for freight. So trying to travel more, since he passed, because life is short and we're not, guaranteed anything. So I'd say those are probably the two big things, but I enjoy what I do. I live in Chicago, so as soon as winter breaks and summer's nice, I'm in my pool as much as I can because we only get about 3 or 4 months out of it. But I would say that's kind of my outside of KLS, what my life entails.
That's cool. And what about like taking care of yourself? What are some of your things in your regimen?
Yeah, so I try to do a good job with, I think work-life balance is the best. Back in 2021, coming out of COVID was our busiest year ever. I was working 14 to 16-hour days just trying to keep up because everyone shut down for a year and then everyone was back in business trying to make up for a year, right? So everyone was trying to cram in things. And it didn't break me, but it definitely showed me that that's not a sustainable way of life. And then, fast forward 2 years later, I lose my dad, my life kind of goes upside down. So I really just learned that sometimes it's okay to turn the computer off, step away, work's going to be there tomorrow. Certain things obviously require your time and focus, right in that moment, but there's other things where you can let it go and, go step away and, vacation's another thing. I've, got 3 scheduled days off this year. So that's big growth for me. So I'm just trying to kind of blend those two lives together and understand it's okay to have the responsibility of a company, but also still live a life, right? And I think that goes to show with the clients we have, those partners, they understand that it's okay if I step away, that their business isn't going to crumble, right? You might have some accounts where they expect you there 24/7, always by the computer. So knowing that the partners that we've selected and chosen to work with have our back and want us to just be good humans and have a good life outside of just supporting their business, I think is important.
I mean, I love how you put it. It's like you do have to support other people and we have to take care of ourselves. So
Hmm.
I got some specific questions for you now.
Okay,
Sleep,
hit me.
sleep.
I have the Aura ring, so yeah, I do wear that. I try, yeah, I try to do. Shout out. So, oh, Charlie, I'm figuring CF Staffing, I think it was. She was one of my early ones. She put me onto it. So she should get a royalty from Aura. So I do use that. Uh, I will say, so I'm 34, I'll be 35 later this year. I used to be able to stay up till midnight, 1 a.m., wake up at 6 and be okay. And then I think 30 is a real thing. I hit 30 and now I can't do that anymore. So I'm a big basketball junkie. I used to stay up and watch the West Coast games. I don't even make it through the Central games much anymore. So I try to be in bed by 10. If I can be in bed by 9, my body is a lot happier in the morning. So I'm up at 6. So, but yeah, no, sleep is very important. And I found if I go a couple of days without good sleep, then whatever's on TV, I have to just say, not tonight. Like today's got to be kind of that recover, recharge day.
I mean, it is interesting what a pillar, sleep is and sleep becomes. And if you haven't slept enough, there are things that would never normally bother you that are just like, oh man, why is this so difficult today, right? And what about hydration? You drink a lot of
Uh,
water?
yeah, so water, I do not drink pop. So I found out I was borderline diabetic going into 8th grade. So I cut off sugar cold turkey that day. Drank diet for a while and then just one Labor Day decided I'm not going to drink diet anymore. So I'll drink water, tea. Occasional fun adult beverage, but yeah, primarily water. I'll go close to a gallon a day. So yeah, that's always been something. A lot of bathroom breaks in between, but aside from that, yeah, I try to stay as hydrated as possible.
Well, I think that, you're covering so many important things. I mean, you and I both talk to a lot of founders. I mean, between us, we've talked to, close to 1,000 founders. And it's interesting how many founders do not emphasize sleep, do not eat carefully, do not hydrate, don't work out. And I'm not saying that you got to put yourself first, but I think you have to take care of yourself first. You got a family, you got to take care of your business. So I do strongly think that people should be more focused on that.
Absolutely.
Now,
It's that old adage, you can't take care of others if you're not taking care of yourself, right? I mean, and I think that's true because the better you feel, the more you're able to do and the more you're willing to do, right? Like if you, like you said, if you have that night where you don't have a good night's sleep or you stay out late, whatever the case is, you're just watching the clock waiting for it to be over so you can go, get caught up on sleep versus if I have a great night of sleep, I don't mind working that extra hour because I've been giving, giving, giving versus, trying to take. So that's a really good point.
I mean, I think that you and I know, I'm just looking it up as we talk. You and I know a lot of people in common. We should do like a rapid shout out session. Who are some people you want to shout out?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so how about can you give me like a category or a topic? So
Oh
I
yeah, of
mean,
course.
all
Let's
right.
let's start
I
with
feel like this is like word association, so I'm gonna hopefully I don't forget anyone.
let's start with beverages.
Beverages. Okay, so Freebird I mentioned.
Yes, Jay
Jay Williams.
Williams.
Yeah, he is a character. Um, just super cool guy. Obviously, Genius Gourmet, they're crushing it. Their sparkling protein. If we had this an hour ago, I would show it to you. I have it daily. Great company. Love the guys over there. Love the team. They're awesome. What other? Yes, Honey. I want to shout out Heather. Her husband was in a motorcycle accident. They said there's no way he should be alive. He's up walking now. She's been a joy.
We gotta we
Maze,
gotta we gotta shout out Sierra Thomas.
yeah, Sierra. Yeah, she was before 100. Big fan of Sierra. Then we have another one I want to do is Maisley. So they're the first corn-based milk. Um, they're a super interesting company. They're winning awards left and right. So for beverages, those ones come to mind. I'm trying to like quickly scroll through
And
my
Lance, we
my
gotta shout out to
favorites.
Lance Kesner from Millie's Sipping Broth.
Okay, see now this is where you're coming in. You're gonna have to make a connection and get him on my
Yes.
Together Talks because it sounds like he would be a good fit.
And someone I've never met in person or had on the podcast, but I'm fascinated by is Reza Mirza. He is the CEO of Icelandic Glacial Bottled Water, who's, I
I
mean,
I followed them for a while. Yeah, I would. It's one of those things where, like, on LinkedIn, you see people post, right? And the more active ones, you're constantly seeing. So I'm like, oh, they'd be so good for this. But again, it just kind of goes back to timing and everything. So yeah, whoever's watching this, if they want to make a connection, hit us up. We'd love to have them on both of them.
and then on the packaging side, Doris Colbert and Crystal Novi and Kristen Marley Patrick from Orangely. Who else you want to shout out? Lad Wallen from Roots Chips.
Yeah, another good one I've been looking at. Packaging, I would like to shout out just more on the creative side. So the creative pack, Danielle Kidney, she was a good one. I know she's real prevalent at Expo West. Tomorrow, they're not on yet, or not tomorrow, sorry, Thursday. Mark Gannon from Crinkle Pack. So a lot of companies that need stuffer for their products, he's going to be featured. He's been a friend for a long time. I've known him since the sixth grade. So we do some business together. We're going to feature him. So that was a cool story for me just because it's someone I've known, for 25 years. So definitely shout him out. Let me think. I'm trying to look here.
And it looks like Fiona Lee at Pod is a mutual connection.
Fiona Lee from Pod. They might be under our business resources maybe because we haven't featured them, but I know they're Chicago based, so I see them come up a lot and a lot of companies that we're, trying to source for this work with Pod. So I know they're doing some really good things.
And then what about Tim Richards, the man at Philosopher Foods? That's another,
Philosopher, yeah,
yeah,
they've got their new it's nuts, right? Is their new product they just came out with?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've done some work with them. We helped them with one of their products. They got into was either UNFI or KHE out on the West Coast. So we helped with that implementation, which went really successful. So that was a good one.
Awesome. Well, let me ask you this. What is next for Together Talks? What do you think is going to happen next? Are you looking, yeah, I think you said you want to hit 300 and
Mhm.
then what?
Yeah, so 300 is our goal. I mean, I think I would want to continue it. I know we talked about maybe one day doing kind of like a recap version or something. We used to do a newsletter that went out where we would do like a recap and then try and pull stuff, but it's just a little too time sensitive for us. But yeah, I think 300 would be the magic number, and then it depends. It's always going to depend on where the business is, right? Because I don't want to do this half-ass. I want to be able to continue to give it the, love and support that we've given it. So podcasts, I think one day, just because the way people consume information is podcasts, which it's crazy because these interviews are like an 8-minute read, so everyone's got that. Take your phone to the bathroom or, you know what I mean, while you're making dinner or something. Like they're very quick reads. So I never understand that because I'll like look on our things. They'll be like average read time 55 seconds. I'm like, it's crazy to me, but I think podcast is probably the future of it. I just don't know when. Again, that's I have these great ideas, but I understand the steps in order to get there, and I don't want to do it if I can't fully commit to it. So it's always that balance between where we're at work wise, if we continue to grow, get some additional support, and then maybe one day I can just transition into that marketing guy. And, just like Curtis from Portland Leather Goods, I just want to be like a smaller version of him because he's just like the content king. So
That's awesome. If someone was listening today and wanted to take one thing away from the conversation, what would you want it to be?
um I'll keep it short, but I would say A, share your story. B, support those who are sharing their story. And C, don't be afraid to ask for things or comment on people's posts or whatever the case may be, because that's ultimately what drives traffic, what drives eyeballs, what drives people noticing, getting attention. So I always thought like, oh, this person's never known me. They don't want to hear from me. They don't want me clogging their feed. But realistically, it doesn't take anything to take 5 seconds out of your day and say, hey, congratulations or awesome job or whatever the case is, and then in our avenue, it's come talk to us, right? We're here to help you. Like, sure, we get a little bit of publicity out of it, but ultimately it's about you. Our focus is on you. Let us treat you for a day and, give you all this exposure. So yeah, I would just say it's those three things, speak up, refer others. I think that's really important. Kind of going back to that connector piece. If somebody does a good job, go out and say it. Like I'll even companies will highlight other logistics companies, which is my competitor. And I'm like, yes, like more of that. That's what we need, and not just specific to our industry, but if someone works with you and you do great work, like you want them to shout you out because that ultimately grows your business, right? Just like we see these companies saying, hey, we came out with this new product or we got into X retail or like, yeah, we're celebrating that victory for you. So anytime someone helps you get to that victory, I'd say shout them out. I think that's really important.
I mean, I love how you describe that because I think that, we share that in common. It's like abundance, right? It's like there's so much in the world, there's so many good people, and I'm not interested in competing. I'm interested in collaborating. You're the customer, you pick who you want to work with in the same way, as a service provider, we pick who we want to work with. So it's like I'm happy to shout everyone out, and I love that kind of abundance mentality. And I think we're both very fortunate to be able to talk to such inspiring people. I think it's hands down one of my favorite things to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I call it free therapy, right? Every time I get to sit on one of these, it's so you're getting someone else's perspective. And a lot of times it's people or companies that are way more successful than I ever will be. And it's like, you're just letting me pick your brain and it's not costing me anything. I didn't have to buy you coffee. Like you're just sitting here out of the kindness of your heart, telling your story. So yeah, I'm very grateful for it. That's why we continue to do it despite the amount of hours we've done. And, the ROI isn't great on it, but that's okay because every now and then you get that one diamond in the rough, right? And it turns into a great partnership or even a conversation like this. Like, hopefully, we're going to make a difference for someone watching this where they'll reach out to myself or reach out to you, whatever the case is, and it'll make their life or their business better. That's all you can ask for.
Exactly, exactly. What a powerful conversation, my man. Thank you so much for doing this today. Everyone, Sean Klimson, owner and founder of KLS, and logistics and creator of Together Talks. If you've ever felt like your story didn't matter or doesn't matter, you've heard it from Sean firsthand. This is your reminder that your story makes a big difference in the world and could make someone else happier or influence them to do something really great. So to learn more about KLS or how you can be part of Together Talk, stay connected, and keep an eye out for upcoming conversations. Sean, tell everyone the website address so they could go find KLS.
Yep. So it's our last name, Klimson, KLIMSON, LS.com.
That's awesome. KLS.com. And then if you're a brand looking to tell your story, create some awareness and familiarity and turn that attention into sales velocity, Firebelly Marketing's got your back. Visit firebellymarketing.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, everyone. Sean, thank you so much for making the world better, my man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. And everyone, once this post, go in the comments if you want to see Duncan on Together Talks. We see enough requests, we'll have to fit them in.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Take care. Have a good one, Duncan.
Thanks for listening to the Firebelly Social Show. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.